Hey, Cody, thank you so much for coming back on the show. It's so good to see you and to hang out with you. Tell us a little bit about what's new since the last time you came on. Last time you were on, we talked a little bit about side hustles and what you were doing with disc golf. So this is like forever ago. So tell us, how has life evolved since then?
Life has evolved in many ways since then. Was that 2018 or 2019
I
maybe?
think it right around there. Yeah, one of those.
Either end of 2018, early 2019. It feels like forever ago. It was. We're recording this in 2026, so 7 years
Mhm.
ago. So yeah, I had the disc golf company. I was doing some freelance stuff. I was definitely not financially independent, but since then, I've tried 30 plus different side hustles. I have made it to financial freedom in a number of different ways, cash flow, financial independence, the nest egg method. We can talk about all the differences today. But yeah, it's been quite the journey, Whitney. I've learned a lot. I definitely, I thought, I knew everything back then. I was reading all the books, listening to all the podcasts, watching all the YouTube videos, but I did not know what I did not know. And so hopefully 10 years, I'll look back on this episode and I'm like, man, when I was 30, I truly didn't know anything. And it's cool because I feel like I've been just constantly growing as a person. And it's been awesome building community and sharing my story along the way.
I was gonna say, I think that's probably a good thing. If you look back and you're like, wow, there was so much I didn't know then. Like, that's a good sign of growth. So congrats on that. But I have to ask, okay, one of the things you've been up to is my friend, you wrote a freaking book, an
I
entire
did.
book about how to retire by the time you're 30 years old, which for so many people seems like pie in the sky or maybe a little bit impossible. So for you, your entry point into the world of financial independence, retire early, fire, how did you even learn about this? Like, what was your entry point?
So I was very lucky to get introduced to this when I was 19 years old. I read The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss,
Mhm.
and up to that point, I thought that the richest people were the people who made the highest dollars per hour. So a doctor makes $200 an hour, a lawyer makes $300 an hour. But after reading that book, I realized that the richest people don't trade their time for money at all. Like someone like Warren Buffett could sit on his hands for a year and make billions of dollars, while regular folk are out there grinding their butts off, but they're not going to come close to that. So like the richest
Mm.
people in the world have built or bought assets that pay them regardless of whether or not they're working. So I went out on a mission to create this elusive passive income. So that's when I started the disc golf company. That's when I
Mm.
started all these other side hustles like selling digital products. I got into real estate. I was doing a whole bunch of freelancing. That's not really passive income, but it was a way to make money. And yeah, I just got obsessed with this idea. And then I went down the fire rabbit hole, discovered Mr. Money Mustache and the Mad
Mhm.
Fientist, started listening to different podcasts like Choose Fi and Afford Anything early on. And
Mhm.
yeah, once I just realized that this was a thing, and actually doing in-person events was huge too. Once I realized that there were real people, normal people in real life, I got to look them in the face, shake their hand, and these people had hit financial freedom, retired in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, things that I had never heard about before in school from my parents, from anyone. I was like, okay, I can do this too.
Yeah. I like that you immediately thought you could do it. Was there like, I mean, I know for a lot of people, they hear these stories and they're like, just don't feel like that could be me. Like it feels so far out of reach or so far out of touch. Do you feel like for you to accept that this was even possible for you, was that a bit of a grind? Like, did you have to work at that? Did it come naturally? Like, give us some context there.
I think part of the reason I was so confident was because I had not succumbed to lifestyle inflation at that point. So again, I'm
Got it.
19 years old. I'm still living like a college kid. I'm living my best life spending 12 to $1,500 a month, right?
Yeah.
So in order for me to replace that with side hustles or businesses, it wasn't too difficult. I was like, okay, if I build up these income streams, I'll be able to eventually work my way out of corporate. We could talk about that story.
Mhm.
I lasted a whole 7 months there, but I think that's probably a big reason why is I didn't have the big house. I didn't have a fancy car. I wasn't spending thousands of dollars going out to eat and going out to bars every month. I was living pretty simply. So I think maybe it was just blind ignorance, but it helped. And I was like, okay, I think if I work at this hard enough, I'll at least be able to cover my bare bones expenses, which were like $1,500 a month at the time.
Which is really, I mean, it probably feels like a lot when you're 19. That is a lot of money,
Oh, it
but
felt like everything.
you
Yeah.
know, I mean, right? But grand scheme, it's like I think you did a good job of just avoiding that lifestyle inflation, at least for a while. Now, to be fair, you talk about this in your book too. You're not still living on $1,500 a month. Like you have
No.
definitely increased your lifestyle. You're enjoying your money as you should, but that is your starting point. I do think it's interesting too. When we first met, Cody, was it 2017 at Campfire,
August
Arkansas?
2018 was Camp Fire,
20,
Arkansas.
okay. So at that point, you were still working your corporate job, right?
Yeah, I quit January 31st, 2019. So I was still working in corporate.
Okay, okay. So when you got into that room and you started to learn a little bit more about financial independence, connect with like-minded people, what shifted in you that triggered you to quit your job? Like, what was that transition?
I think I always wanted to quit corporate, or I didn't even want to start corporate because I found out about this world so early on and passive
Totally.
income. But
Yeah.
I don't think I had the confidence then to just go out as an entrepreneur on my own. Like I didn't have enough money coming in from my side hustle. So I was like, okay, I have this pretty high-powered corporate job, and everyone
Mhm.
had told me that I had made it. I was making $80,000 straight out of school, which was
That's
awesome.
great.
Like it was amazing, and I was able to save a huge percentage of my income because I was doing strategic things with my expenses.
Hmm.
And so I think I was just using the corporate job as kind of a crutch, but it was also a great savings tool because I was basically
Yeah,
living mostly on my side hustle stuff and then banking everything I was making from corporate. So even though I only lasted 7 months in corporate, I saved like $35,000 from it,
which is
which
like
was huge to take the
wild.
leap. Yeah,
Yeah,
it might not sound like a ton of money to someone who's spending $10,000 a month, but
sure,
think of me who is spending $1,500 a month. I'm like, $35,000, that's multiple years of runway for me to
for
try
sure.
my hand at all these different ventures.
Well, and to be fair too, like if somebody says like 35 is not that much, like look at your own bank accounts. Are you there? Like so many
Yeah,
people don't
sure.
even have that much money. So it's like that is nothing to like balk at. That's a lot of freaking money. So with that, you're starting to save money. You're starting to just build up your nest egg. Were you putting these into like retirement accounts? Was it a savings account? What was your strategy there?
I think at the time I just had it in like a high yield savings account. I didn't want
Yeah,
to invest it because I did have that kind of scarcity mindset. I was like, okay, what if all
sure.
my entrepreneurship fails? I want to be able to access this money. I don't, if the market tanks, like, I just I had backup systems for my backup plans. So I think I just had the money in a high yield savings account at that point. But soon after, when I quit corporate, when entrepreneurship starts going right, that's when I started investing pretty aggressively.
I see. I see. Okay. So that gives us a little bit of backstory. And then when you were writing this book, what was your inspiration? Like, who is this for? Why did you write it? Why now? Like, give us some context of like what the inspiration was behind this.
So I've had this book in my notes on my phone, Whitney, since September 2021. And
Whoa,
it's just one of
David.
those things that sits on your to-do list forever. I'm sure you
Yeah.
have a couple things like that.
Five
And
million.
things just keep getting put in front of it on the to-do list. And finally, after my 29th birthday, I'm 30 now, I was like, okay, if I'm going to call this thing Retired by 30, which is the title that I had in my notes for 5 years,
Yeah.
I need to get this thing out. I'm about to turn 30 in a year. So I
Yeah.
just like grinded for a year, going through tons of edits, thousands of hours, tons of interviews. Finally got the book out. And who's it for? It's for someone who's at the beginning of their journey to financial independence. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be under 30. Like you could be starting your journey when you're 45 years old, when you're
Mhm.
60 years old. It doesn't really matter. What matters is you're at the beginning of your financial independence journey. And what this book does is just kind of lay out all the options available. So I very, very intentionally made it not the Cody story. And the only person who was mad about that was my mom. She's like, why isn't the book more about you? I'm like, because I want everyone to resonate with a character in the book. So I intentionally lay out a bunch of different case studies, people who did financial independence just through corporate, people who did it through real estate, people who did it through small business, people who are entrepreneurs, every type of person you could think of from every walk of life, from every scenario. So, yeah, to answer your question, it's kind of for anyone at the very beginning stages
Mhm.
of financial independence or someone who's in the middle of their journey, kind of looking for that extra dial to turn to hit financial independence even faster.
I agree. And you kind of talk about two different ways of getting to that point, like precursors for saving and investing. You talk about nest egg and then cash flow method. Can you talk a little bit about what each of these means when it comes to financial independence?
Yeah, so the nest egg method is probably the one that you're familiar with if you're in this financial independence, retire early, this fire space. This is the 4% rule. This is where you take
Mhm.
your annual expenses, you multiply it by 25, and that's how much money you need invested in the stock market in order to live on that money in perpetuity. So if you're
Mm.
spending $60,000 a year, 60 times 25 is 1.5 million. That's how much money you need sitting in investment accounts to then live on that money forever. And just to show you the math backwards, 4% of 1.5 million is the $60,000 that you're spending every year. So that's the 4% rule. That's like the what most people think of when they think of financial independence. And that's what a lot of the early bloggers, podcasters, those types of folks talked about when they talked about financial independence. The kind of newer, hotter form of financial independence and faster is cash flow financial independence. So this is
Hmm.
bringing in enough passive cash flow every month, whether that's from real estate or small business or what have you, to cover your expenses. So if you have, again, let's use that same example, you're spending $5,000 a month or $60,000 a year. Once you have $5,000 a month coming in passively, whether that's from rental real estate, whether that's from digital products, like I mentioned before, whether that's
Mhm.
from just some asset that you have that you own that you are not trading a ton of your time for. Now, I want to say passive income is a spectrum. It doesn't have to be like completely passive or completely active. Like there is a spectrum to this. So if you're spending 5 hours a month and that's supporting your lifestyle, like, hey, that's pretty good
That's
in my
awesome.
opinion. That's way better than 100% active income. So this second way, cash flow fi, is just getting enough passive cash flow every month so that you are covering your expenses. And you can do a combo approach too. That's what I did. I did the
Yeah.
nest egg method and the cash flow method, and that just made me feel even more secure in my financial independence numbers.
So did you start with the nest egg method, I presume, and then kind of transition over to cash flow?
Yeah, I did. That's kind of the way it happened because I started just investing, just plowing all my extra money into index funds. And I'll give people some real numbers from my entrepreneurial journey. So,
Yeah.
my first year in entrepreneurship, I made $96,000. My expenses were around $24,000. I was spending about $2,000 a month. I was saving like 75% of my income. The
It's
next year,
fantastic.
thank you. The next year, because I was focusing on kind of scalable income, scalable side hustles, if you will, the things I'm
Hmm.
talking about now, where they pay you whether or not you're working. They pay you in perpetuity and they scale. So the
Yeah.
next year in entrepreneurship, I made 198,000, still spent only 24,000. The year after that, I made 403,000. My income doubled again, and I still spent only 24,000. That third year, I had a
Mm.
$379,000 gap between what I was earning and what I was spending. Now, back to your question. So, for the beginning of my journey, I was just plowing all that extra money, all that like saving from that super high savings rate just into regular old index funds. This was between my retirement accounts and brokerage accounts. But then I had so many people on my podcast who had hit financial independence in like 2 or 3 years from real estate. And I know you're no stranger to real estate, Whitney.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the heck? Like our friends James and Emily. You know
Yeah.
James and Emily. We met at Campfire, Arkansas.
Yeah.
And I had them on my podcast. And they were one of the first people that were like, we retired in 2 years from real estate. They were buying
Just
multifamily in Huntsville, Alabama. And I'm like, okay, like this is it. I'm going to try
yep.
real estate. This is 2020, so I kind of really started my journey in 2019. This is 2020. I'm like, all right, I'm going to try my hand at real estate. So I start buying some properties and made some mistakes along the way.
For sure.
But within a year, Lauren and I, my then girlfriend, now wife, had accumulated 11 rental units with we spent like $200,000 on down payments, which might sound like a lot, but that's why I wanted to give you those numbers in advance. Like the gap between my income and my expenses were pretty high.
Yeah.
We got 11 units, and after we'd acquired those units, they were very high cash flowing units, which came with their own set of problems. We were making about $3,700 a month after PITI, after
Mhm.
capex, after reserves, after everything. So we were taking home like more than we were spending each month just from that real estate. And we had this like $500,000 nest egg sitting in the stock market. So that's what I mean by I kind of took the combo approach where I have, whatever that is, what's 4% of 500,000, $20,000 a year.
Yep.
And then I had the $3,700 a month coming in from real estate. So we were like double fi at that point.
That's pretty impressive. I love that you were able to still find a way to make it work. And then now you still do real estate, but you also have like digital products and you've got your own business now. So it's like it's even evolved since there too. But from what I'm hearing, Cody, it sounds like one of the big factors or the things that like really put the gas on the fire is the gap. You were saying you were only spending $24,000 a year, even when your income increased significantly. And you probably could have, in theory, spent $100,000 on your lifestyle, but you still kept it pretty low. So this gap portion is something that I think is really interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about like what is the gap and how do you identify if you even have a gap?
Yeah, so the gap is just the difference between what you make and what you spend. So what you keep is basically the gap. And this
Mhm.
is the most important metric. And it's funny because 99% of personal finance content out there is like what to invest in. It's like, oh, should I do this
Yeah.
account or this account? Or should I do this index fund or this ETF or blah, blah, blah. What really matters if your goal is hit financial independence as fast as possible is that gap. Like if you are saving, say 50% of your income and there's someone else who's saving 10% of their income, but that person's like a financial whiz and they know all the best investments and they know how to make, 12.5% and you might only be making 8. If you're saving 50% of your income and they're only saving 10, you're going to absolutely clobber them on your climb to financial independence because of the sheer volume of money you're saving year over year. If you don't believe me, just type in compound interest calculator into Google and
Hmm.
prepare to have your mind blown. Start to mess around with some numbers and just see how much of a difference it makes if you change the percentage from say 8% to 9% to 10% versus if you're changing your monthly contributions to from 1,000 to $5,000 a month. It is crazy what that gap can do. And so I'm such an advocate. And so many people ask me like, oh, what's the best investment? Like, how do I get my money to double next year? It's like, that's the wrong question. You should be asking yourself, how do I maximize the gap? And then wealth will just follow.
So if somebody's listening in and they're like, okay, Cody, I'm with you, my friend. I want the gap to be larger. I would prefer to have more money to put towards my future. But the way my life works is I've got a checking and I got a savings. No, and so they're like, okay, what do I do? How do I actually get to the point where I can have more money to do this? Like, what are the common things that you found too when you were writing this book, or even looking at your own life that you were like, okay, these are some easy levers we can pull to increase that gap a little bit more?
So it's totally going to depend. I hate the it depends lawyer speak, but it depends on you. So if you have
Mhm.
an easy way to increase your income, let's say you're in a sales commission role and like
Yeah,
you can work a little harder and make some extra money that way.
yeah,
Awesome. Like that seems like an easy-ish way to turn on the income lever and increase that gap. If you're not in that position, if you're just like, I have no time, Cody, I'm in this salary job, I have no income movement, I have no vertical income movement, then it's probably start looking at your expenses. If you're
yeah.
in that type of job and you have a little bit extra time to do some side hustles, then maybe use side hustle to increase the gap. But basically, what I'm saying is there's no one size fits all answer. I will say that at the beginning, it is probably easier to optimize your expenses than to just smash the income button. Like you can start
Yeah.
to optimize income later on, but I think expenses, especially at the beginning, is probably your biggest lever because even the number I was sharing before, I'm making multiple hundreds of thousands and spending
Yeah.
$24,000 a year. Like the reason why I was able to invest so much was because I kept my expenses low. I see a lot of other people in the entrepreneurship space and the real estate space who made the same amount of money that I did. They were making three, $400,000 a year. They're also spending $300,000 or $400,000 a year. They got the fancy apartment. They got the Lambo. They got all this crazy flashy things that they don't need. They get that sales check and then they go and buy a $20,000 Rolex. It just if you can hold off on some of those crazy purchases, then you're going to have a super nice gap between your income and your expenses. So I think the big three is where you can make the biggest changes. And you hear a lot of personal finance folks. I know there's like the Latte Factor was a popular book for a while by David Bach. People say like, oh, cut out your coffee. That's what's gonna make you have a massive gap between your income and your expenses. And it's like
Mm.
cutting out your coffee can help. Let's call it $5 a day. 30, let's say you get one every single day. It's like $150 a month. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that doesn't help, but it helps way less than if you start to optimize for the big three, which are housing, transportation, and food. And to give you
Mm.
guys some real numbers, I'll share exactly what I did on this journey. So, housing. So, the year after school, so I think I was 23 when I started house hacking. So I have a lot of friends who are out living in Boston. I'm in Massachusetts. They're spending $2,500 a month on a studio apartment. I mean, it's a super high
Whoa.
cost of living city, super high cost of living city, much more expensive than Boise.
Yeah.
And so Lauren and I were like, we don't really want to do that. So what we did was we house hacked. And I know you've talked a little bit about house hacking on the show before. So we're actually still, I'm recording from this unit right now. We're in a
Mhm.
one bed, one bath. 50 feet away from us is a four-bed, two-bath apartment attached to 600 square feet of office space. It's all one property. So we bought it all together. We rent out all that. We don't need that much room.
Hmm.
It's just Lauren, myself, and my cat. And we are now bringing in $800 a month from our housing because we're getting $2,600 a month in rent.
That's
Expenses
great.
all in are like $1,800 a month. So just from that one thing, just from that one expense, just from housing, we have friends who are paying $2,500 a month to live. We're making $800 a month to live. That's an over $3,000 per month gap that we're uncovering just from this one simple decision to house hack.
Okay, hold up. Let's dive into that for a sec because I think the natural tendency, and maybe it's like comparison syndrome, it feels like it's just so ingrained that we should show our success in some way. We're
Yeah.
always taught that, like, go get that apartment that has the cool view, and you will be perceived as if you have your shit together, which realistically is like, no, probably not. But How did you break from that? Like, it sounds like you've been doing that work since you were like 19 years old, so that probably wasn't too difficult for you. But for somebody that is kind of struggling with that, they feel like they want to show that they're successful and that they've quote unquote made it. How did we break out of that decision or that mindset on its own?
I think that you have to really want the destination. Nothing that I'm saying to you in this
Mm,
podcast is going to make you want to just downgrade your house or downgrade your car. But once you have the notion that early financial freedom is possible, it's going to make all these decisions infinitely easier. Like you're going to be like, of course I'm not going to get that new BMW. Like I want this nice gap between my income and my expenses so I can invest and retire in my 30s, 40s, or 50s. I think once you understand that financial freedom is possible, like I was saying before, and this was a huge revelation for me when I started meeting people in real life, all of the decisions around money just became infinitely easier because I had this goal. I think if you don't have that goal, it's going to be very hard to convince yourself or have someone else convince you to, hey, you should actually sell that house and live somewhere smaller. It's like
right.
no one
Like,
wants to hear that. But
yeah,
if you get them on
fun.
board and you're like, hey, you could be work optional by the time you're 40 years old if you do X, Y, and Z, then it's like, okay, I'll risk it for the biscuit. Like if I know what the
Yep.
end destination is going to be, I might be more willing to sacrifice and make some trades along the way. So I think that's probably the most important thing is just awareness. Just know that this is possible, and then the decisions will come easier.
Okay, we're gonna dive into the other two for the big three, but I have to like take us on another tangent because my brain's going here.
I love
ADD
it.
much? Okay, when we're talking about yes, you can be work optional by the time you're 40 if you make some really smart decisions currently or whatever age. I think sometimes people hear that and they're like, okay, cool, but that means that I still have to live this way the entirety of my life. Like, I'm not interested. I don't want to always house hack or have roommates or always be driving the beater car. So, is that even true? Or is that just something that we're telling ourselves in our head that's just kind of BS?
Absolutely not true. You can definitely inflate your lifestyle later on, but it's so important to get that gap in the early years. Going back to that compound interest calculator, like you only have to get this right for a handful of years. It
Yeah.
took 3 years of concentrated grind for me from 22 to 25 to kind of get this right and have enough money in motion so that I would never have to work again. You could be listening to this when you're 45. You could just do the same thing from 45 to 48. You could be 60 listening to this. Do the same thing that I did from 60 to 63. I know people see the title of my book. They're like, retire by 30. Well, I'm 37. There's
Well
nothing I
past
can learn
that.
now. It's like, that's not the point. The point is, you can completely upend your financial life at any point. And just because I did it from, say, 22 to 25, or someone else did it from 25 to 30, that does not mean you can't do it in your 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s.
Yeah.
So it's really never too late to kind of completely shift your financial life around.
And I do think that's an important message, and I appreciate you sharing that because I've heard people say that before where they're like, I don't want to live like this forever. I'm like, my friend, nobody does. Like that's not exactly enjoyable for most people. Some people really like it. I don't know, but a lot of us want to enjoy our money. But you're saying it's a short time period of sacrifice where you might be making the decisions that your friends and family I, side eye you for, and they're like, I don't know, why are you doing that? That's kind of weird, man. But it's a stepping stone. It's that foundational piece that you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not forever. It's just temporary. All you need to do is get that nest egg, get that money in motion, and then you can start to increase and inflate your lifestyle a little bit.
Agreed. Okay, so we talked about your housing being a big one, and I love your strategy. I think that's really smart. Random side note, was that a commercial loan where it had some
It
elements of
was a
like,
commercial loan.
okay, I
Yeah, because
wonder,
they had office
interesting.
space.
Yeah, sweet. That's a good hack. Okay, so you did that. You got your housing done. What are the other two of the big three that we can work on?
And the big three, by the way, are not, it's not something that I made up. This is based on a ton of research that they did. I think it was a bunch of Gallup polls and other
Hmm.
institutes. Basically, they just polled thousands, tens of thousands of Americans and said, hey, like, what are your biggest expenses? And it was like 33% or 33% of people's money is spent on housing. I was going to say 33% of people. Um, about 17% is on transportation. That's number two. And then about
Oh,
16, 17% is also on food. So those three categories make up like 66% of a person's average spending, which is
a lot.
crazy. That's like two-thirds. So it's like
Yeah,
when people talk about, cutting out the lattes or cutting out Netflix, it's like these things are barely moving the needle in comparison with some of these other things.
I
Now, on
totally.
the car front, so a lot of people, a lot of my peers, right when we started making real money, again, I was working in Boston. I had this high-powered corporate job, making 80K a year, and then I was making good money in entrepreneurship. A lot of people
Mhm.
are upgrading their cars. A lot of people are leasing the newest vehicle that year. I am still driving to this day the same paid off 2015 truck.
Yeah,
No, I have no car payment. It's just gas, insurance, and maintenance, which I don't even drive it that much anyway because I work at home. It's negligible. So like because I did not choose to upgrade my car. You know what's crazy, Whitney? I just saw recently that the average new car payment in the US just eclipsed $750 a month.
that's
Like
insane.
imagine you could just buy a paid off car in
Yeah,
cash, not
yeah,
financed, and then you all of a sudden you have a $750 per month gap. Like even just plug that number into a compound interest calculator.
oh, that's a
$750 a
lot
month for 20 years with 8% interest. My gosh, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
for sure.
So that's transportation. And it's, again, not super complicated. It's not like I was driving this really unsafe beater that was rusting out with the muffler dragging on the ground. Like my car is fine. No one would be like, oh, that guy, he must be down in the dumps because he's driving that car. Nor are they very impressed by it, but I'm not a car guy. It's not one of
Right.
the things I value. So it's like, it gets me from point A to point B. It's fine. And so I'm just going to keep driving this thing as long as it's safe and it works.
I
And
love
so
it.
that's my car strategy.
I like your car strategy too. I think that I similarly, I'm the same way. Like I used to have a lot of value in cars. I don't anymore. But it's one of those things where it's like if it gets you to point A to point B and it's inexpensive and 700, you're saving $750 a month. That is wild to me. Like for so many people, that's a mortgage payment. Like quite seriously.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you're driving a mortgage that's depreciated. Like it's so wild to me, but that's, personal finance me talking. The other one that you talked about, so we have the housing, transportation, and food. Now, when you're talking about food, are you talking about eating out? Are you talking about groceries? Like, what does that entail?
So the survey was all food. So that is eating out and groceries. Any
Okay.
place that you're spending money and consuming food. This is per the survey. But for us, in terms of strategy, so grocery store, we're just very intentional. We kind of stuck to our list. We would
Yeah.
hunt for the deals. We are using all the apps at the time. And I mean, I feel like if you just do that, if you're like, getting your proteins and you're just like, okay, maybe
Mhm.
pork's on sale this week, maybe chicken's on sale this week. If you're just like intentional about what you're getting and then you
Yeah.
kind of stick to the list, don't go to the grocery store hungry, it is pretty possible to not spend a ton of money every week on groceries. I know I've seen some people's grocery bills and it's just astronomical because they're getting like the top of the line, all this crazy stuff that one, they might not even eat it all. It might go to waste at the end of the week. And it's just like
That's so
if
true.
you're early in your journey, and again, this goes back to what I was saying before. I spend way more on groceries now. We
Mhm.
do buy like a lot higher quality meat and we buy like organic
Mhm.
everything, but that's because we're where we're at now. Like we
Yeah.
sacrificed for a couple years and just got the cheap, like slightly cheaper stuff, not like the worst stuff ever. But it saved us a lot. And then when we would go, this is the other thing. People would be like, "Oh, well, you spend $24,000 a year. You must have never done anything fun." Like Lauren and I, we still went out to eat. We were,
Yeah.
24 and 22 at the time. We still went out to bars with our friends. That was a huge bar
Mhm.
scene in our mid 20s. We were still going out and doing stuff. We were just like slightly optimizing and slightly tweaking. So going out to eat,
Mhm.
we might order an app and an entree and share it.
Mhm.
And, if we were hungry later on, we could eat something later on. But like friends
Right.
might be ordering an app, entree, and dessert, finishing three-quarters of each and then just leaving it and wasting the food. And, going out to the bars, we'd, maybe pregame at home a little bit. We wouldn't
Yep.
buy as much stuff out. And we'd still do the stuff. But over the long run, like if we're going out and we're only spending $50 and we have a friend who's going out and spending $150, that adds up over time, even if it's once a weekend. Like that's, $100 difference every single weekend. That's like $5,000 over the year. It adds up a lot.
Hmm.
So we were just doing all these very small intentional things, and especially in those big three categories that allowed us to have such a massive gap, even in those early years when we weren't earning a ton.
Are you still managing your grocery food budget, all of that stuff, like pretty closely, or do you not really pay as much attention now?
I pay almost zero attention now,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
Our food budget has definitely gone way, way up. We spend a
Sure.
lot on food, experiences, and travel. Those are like our
Yeah.
three big buckets and we can talk about this too. We really try to spend in alignment with our values. So Lauren and I
Yeah.
did this exercise where we each independently wrote down a list of the top 10 things we value.
Mhm.
And then we took an honest look at our calendars, at our bank accounts, our credit card statements. We're like, are we living in alignment with our values? And if we're
Yeah.
not, then we need to, cut the things out that are not in alignment and add the things in that are in alignment that we're not currently doing. And so for us, like, some of the big categories were like we like travel, we like, we like eating out, we like experiences, we like spending time with one another. Now, not all these cost money, but the ones that do cost money, you better bet your bottom dollar that the highest percentage of our pie chart every month on our spending
Mhm.
are those things that we value.
Yeah.
So like we try to put our money where our mouth is, and yes, so this is a very long-winded answer to your question, Whitney,
No,
but
it makes total
we
sense
spend a
now.
lot more now on things like eating out, even on our groceries and
Mhm.
travel and experiences.
I'm always so curious about this too. So when you get to the point where you're financially independent, you don't really have to worry as much about work and managing the day to day. What does the management system look like now? Is it primarily just automated? You've got like everything streamlined. Is it still like you have to pay attention a little bit? Like how do you do this now with your own finances?
Everything is on autopilot. This is a great question too, because this is something I wanted to talk about if we got to talking about investments. But I think so many people try to rely on willpower and motivation to invest. Like they'll
So
wait till they get
true.
their tax return, they'll wait till they get their bonus check. But it's like if you just set these things on autopilot, then there's no waiting until, there's no like, oh, when I X, Y, or Z, then I can do this.
Mm.
It systems always beat willpower. So like literally, Whitney, all my stuff is on autopilot. I have all my investments happening every single month without me clicking any buttons. Now I do go and check in and make sure that nothing's going awry, make sure that all my money is actually getting invested, not just sitting in some money market account. So I have everything set up on autopilot. I do periodically check in and make sure everything's running smoothly. But yeah, it's pretty much on autopilot for the most part.
Would you say that's like, I mean, I bill pay too, like of course,
Oh,
who's
of
paying
course.
bills manually these days? Those people I'm like, you guys get with it.
Please.
But are you budgeting? Like, do you and your wife sit down and like, I know you talk about money dates in the book too, and I know you guys do like check in periodically with your finances, but are you like as diligent about budgeting and tracking every expense and like, do you do that to the same degree now?
No, we were fanatic about it before. I mean, we
Yeah.
knew exactly to the penny what we spent that month, but
Yeah.
now we loosely track. Like at the end of the year, we'll look at our expense
Yeah.
categories and say empower and be like, hey, look at what our pie chart looks like. It's travel
Oh,
and
cool.
experiences. Those are the biggest pieces. But to answer your
Yeah.
question, no, it's not like we're making sure that we spend a certain amount every month because we did it so diligently for those early years that now we don't have to worry about it as much.
Well, I think it's interesting too, because so many people, they get to the point in their lives where even if you are spending more than you probably should, it's very predictable and it's usually very repetitive. So even now, your expenses are probably not really varying that much. Like there might be a time where it's like, oh, we got to book flights, it's going to go up a little bit more for sure. But in general, it's like, it's all pretty stable when you really look at the data for most people. And so it's like
Yeah.
at a certain point, yeah, you probably don't have to pay as close of attention because you've built up that like stability and that predictability over your spending even over the years.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think a lot of people never track, and so they never even know where their starting point is.
True.
But if you track for even a couple months, this goes for food, fitness, this goes for
Yeah.
finances, anything. Like if you track anything for 1 month, you're just gonna have a such better gut understanding of what that thing is, what that amount is, how much you're spending. Like this carries through to everything, but most people don't even start that tracking step. Like I track everything religiously. I track all my workouts, I track what I eat,
Yeah.
I track my finances, I track my like Spanish progress. And because I know where I'm at, because I track all these things, I'm able to improve and get better and have a better kind of gut guess of, how much something might be.
Okay, also, I didn't know you were learning Spanish. That's incredible.
I've been learning Spanish for 4 years now. Me and Lauren have had a tutor
Congrats.
from Venezuela. Yeah, it's been
What?
awesome.
What was the okay, so with that, was that like are you hoping to like move to a Spanish speaking country? Is it just easier to get around for you? Like what was the inspo there?
I've always just wanted to be fluent in another language, and we're
Yeah.
planning on having kids in a couple years, and we want our kid to be bilingual. So
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
gonna kind of suck if mom and dad can't speak the language that we want our kid to speak. And yeah, it's something I've learned like throughout life, but never got good enough to have real conversations. So yeah, I took Spanish in middle school and high school. It was actually funny. We were at a retreat, and have you had Sarah Weaver on the podcast before?
Yeah.
So Sarah, who not to like stereotype her, but if you just looked at a picture of her, you'd never expect her Spanish to be this freaking good. I was
Yeah.
so jealous. Like she's like whitest blonde girl.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
And she just starts ripping in Spanish, and I was so jealous. And I'm like, man, I thought my Spanish was good because I'd been practicing, just not at all to the level that she was apparently.
Yeah.
And I'm a very competitive guy. And right after that trip, this is like January 2022, I got a Spanish tutor, and I've been with her ever since.
And it's been helpful.
It's been amazing.
I love that. I think, well, and see, that's another thing too. It's like spending in line with your values instead of putting all that money into a car payment or some crappy like house that you're like not that passionate about. Instead, it's like you're able to spend on those types of experiences.
Oh
I think
yeah.
it's really cool. I like that a lot.
We were
I have to
just in
talk.
Spain a couple weeks ago,
Oh,
and it was very
right.
helpful.
Oh, yeah, I do believe that. How long were you guys in Spain?
We were in Spain for a week and Morocco for a week.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Which
it was a lot
did
of
you
fun.
prefer one over the other?
Very different. I don't want to even
Yeah,
put them head
fair,
to head because it's not
fair.
even remotely the same experience. But both were
Yeah,
amazing. Would definitely go back to both locations.
that's good to know. That is good to know. Okay, so getting us back on track, because my brain does that sometimes. When you talk about the income side, you mentioned like being able to like really prioritize, negotiate, figure out how you can make more money in your day job. We talk a little bit about side hustles. For somebody who maybe hasn't listened to your previous episode, I'm going to link it because it is a really good one about side hustles and how to increase your income. Is there one specific side hustle or maybe two that you are particularly passionate about?
I'm going to answer this question in a kind of roundabout way because I
Sure.
don't like giving people specific side hustle advice. Because
Mm,
obviously, I can
hmm.
sit here and be like, digital products worked really well for me.
Yeah.
Real estate worked really well for me. Now,
Yeah.
people might take that and think they have to do digital products for real estate. I don't want people to have that takeaway, which is why I kind of want to answer this in a different way. So,
Hmm.
I like to think of side hustles in different buckets, different types of side hustles, and
Yeah.
depending on your background, who you are, your experience, like if I had three different random people lined up, one person's a plumber, one person's a real estate agent, one person works in tech, it's probably going to be three very different answers on what is the best side hustle for those people. You know what I mean? Because like they have
Yep.
such different backgrounds, such diverse skills. So there's basically four main buckets of side hustles, as I like to think. There's the trade your time for money side hustles. So this is just straight up, you are doing a service for someone else. This could be physical or online, like you literally could be doing freelance plumbing work on the
Mhm.
weekend, or you could be building websites, or you could be freelance writing. The second type is scalable side hustles. This is something where you put your time, your effort, your energy, your money into this thing once, and then it pays you in perpetuity. So this is things like digital products, real estate, even something like a YouTube video or a podcast. Like I have
Mhm.
podcast episodes from 2018. If there is some kind of affiliate thing or a sponsorship on that episode, I might still make money on it now in 2026, 8 years later. Like that asset still lives on and pays me decade or it could be decades later.
Could be.
The third type is the sharing economy. So this is basically just renting out the things that you already own. This is your
Mm.
Airbnbs, your Turos. There's even all these crazy ones now. Like you can rent out your pool, you can rent out your equipment, you can rent out a trampoline. Like there's all this sharing economy stuff now. And the fourth one is kind of taking that first one, the trade your time for money,
Yeah.
but businessizing it, if that's a word.
Mm.
So instead of freelance writing, you'd have a freelance writing agency, or instead of being a dog walker, you'd start a dog walking company.
Mm.
So I'd rather give people the framework to think about side hustles and then choose
Hmm.
your own adventure versus, hey, you should do digital products because it worked incredibly well for me.
That's so true. I mean, if you're telling somebody that doesn't even have a computer or access to even Canva, and they're like, "Whoa, what is Canva?" And you're like, "We should do digital product." Yeah, they're going to be like, "What are you
Yeah.
even talking about?" Like, I don't want to do a side hustle then. That's a very, very fair point. Um, I love that you put it in different buckets because it does help people silo and funnel their thinking into where do I fit. So I do think that is like a really cool way to go too. Okay, I have to ask because this was something that I hadn't seen really talked about too much. But when you were talking about increasing your income in the book, you have a whole entire section about networking. So tell us why, because so many times people don't see that as congruent. So why did you decide that networking is a good way to help you overall increase your income?
So I mentioned before when financial independence really came real for me was when I met people in real life doing the thing. The same happened to me on my entrepreneurial journey where I would meet people doing things that I thought previously were impossible, and it
Mhm.
just like shattered these self-imposed glass ceilings I had of myself.
Yeah.
So I know you're friends with my friend Grant Sabatier. Wrote the forward to my
Yeah.
book. That guy shattered so many worldviews and frames that I had kind of put on myself just about like how much money you could make and how you could live differently and like impact and scale. And getting in the rooms with the right people is priceless. Like I feel
Yeah.
like I would not even be close to where I'm at today if I didn't meet amazing mentors, friends, other people doing what I was doing along the way to motivate me and energize me. And
Yeah.
I like using this kind of fitness analogy. I know we just had the 2 hour marathon broken officially for the first time ever. Back in
Whoa.
like the 1940s, there was this guy, Roger Bannister, who ran the first 4 minute mile. And the year after that, 8 people ran a 4 minute mile. No one had ever done it before that. I think the same thing's going to happen with this 2 hour marathon. Next year, there's probably going to be 10 people that run it. But my point being is that once you see someone else do something that you previously thought impossible, it is going to then shatter that ceiling and you're gonna be like, hey, I think I can actually do this thing. So for me, that's why like networking, mentorship, getting in the right rooms is so important because so many times I've had my frame broken by people doing things that I thought were impossible before. And this works in business, this works with health and fitness, this works in relationships. If you're hanging around people doing really cool stuff, you're going
Mhm.
to start to act like those people. You're going to start to learn from those people. You're going to start to do what those people do. And so I cannot tell you how important networking has been in my journey, and I can't recommend it enough for others.
Well, one thing too that I loved in your book when you were talking about networking and mentorship, you were saying, and I was like, it's so true though, but you were saying that there are so many people that were your mentors that probably didn't even know they were mentoring you. So
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about that.
So this one guy, his name was Alex Brown, and he was the president. I don't even know what the role was, honestly,
Hmm.
at my finance society in college. And this
Oh,
guy
sweet.
had us do this exercise where every single day we just reach out to three random people on LinkedIn. And it
Hmm.
was someone who had an interesting role, maybe an alumni from the college, and basically just hit them up, be like, hey, I'm Cody. I'm 19 years old, and I just want to pick your brain. I want to learn more about what you do. And of course, 90% of these people wouldn't answer at all. Even fewer of the people that did answer actually would meet with me.
Yeah.
But it just got me comfortable hearing no and got me comfortable reaching out. So, like, I carried
Yeah.
that skill into adulthood. I carried that into the financial independence space, into the entrepreneurship space, into the real estate space. And so I'm not scared to like just hit a bunch of people up and get a bunch of no's because of that muscle that this random dude who doesn't even know that he had this impact on me, he gave me this skill. And so I feel like there's been so many times in my life where, yeah, people don't even know that they're my mentor. And that's the cool thing about the internet age is we've all heard that Jim Rohn quote. It's like you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with.
Hmm.
Now it doesn't have to be in person. Like you can spend
Hmm.
time with Whitney every single week, multiple times a week on YouTube, on the podcast, wherever, on social media. You don't have to be in the actual same room as Whitney to have Whitney be one of those five people, or for me to be one of those five people. So for me, on the come up, like of course I couldn't spend all my in-person time with all these financial independence folks and all these entrepreneurship folks, but they were constantly in my earbuds. They were constantly on my phone.
Yeah.
So I was just like leveling up. Even though these people might have not even known I existed, I was leveling up, like just constantly consuming their content.
I think it's so dang smart too. I want to see in practicality how this would work. Let's say you go to an event, you go to a conference, you connect with somebody that you think is just a cool person that you want to have as a friend in your corner, a mentor, whatever. You feel like there's some symbiotic relationship potentially there. What do you do? How do you cultivate that network of that relationship?
So I am an individual type of reacher outer. I've been to so many conferences where I'm like, this is a definitely copy pasted message that they sent to every single person they met. So
Yeah.
I actually have a spreadsheet where I have all the people that I've basically ever met in like a business context. You're on there, Whitney. And so when I first meet someone, I'll like try to remember an interesting fact or something that's just like not weird, but something that's like maybe different about them. So I can bring it up next time in conversation. So they
Yeah.
might mention that they're going to Hawaii in 6 months. They might mention that their daughter is about to have their first dance recital. Whatever they're mentioning, like I'll write
Yeah.
that down and then I'll reference it the next time because it just feels like I actually listened to them. And
Yeah.
yes, I used an aid. I used Google Sheets to like help me out remember that, but I'm like very personal with my reach outs. And so, let's say I go to a conference, I meet 30 people, I get their business cards or I take their social media down or whatever. I plug all these people into my spreadsheet and I'll have like a checkbox, like, did I reach out to them or not?
Mhm.
And each time when I reach out to that person, like, I'll do even just 60 seconds of research, see what they're all about, see if
So-
I have anything that I can help them with or anyone that I can connect them with.
yeah.
And some of these people, I might want something in return, but I'm definitely not going to say that right off the bat. Like, they might have an awesome podcast I want to be on. They might be a perfect affiliate for one of my products. They might X, Y, or Z. And I'm not going to lead with that. Be like, hey, like, will you start promoting my stuff? That's not going to work.
No.
I lead by giving first. I love the book The Go-Giver. Like I'm a big
Mm-hmm.
believer in giving first and then the universe will kind of give back to you tenfold. So I'll just try to figure out a way where I can help them. I'm like, hey, like I think you'd really jive with this person, or I think you could learn a lot from XYZ podcast or whatever. I'm just going to try to give them
That's cool.
something, whatever I can give this person that's specific to them again. And
Mhm.
I'll reach out with that message and then, hopefully they get back and then hopefully we foster a relationship from there. But that's how I do it.
I love that too, because I'm thinking through people that are maybe not in the entrepreneurship space, but just trying to optimize their income. What a powerful thing to do where I'm not looking for a job, but I might in 5 years, in 2 years, I don't know. And
Yeah.
so it's just like building up that relationship. So when you do need a job or you want to take like the really cool opportunity, you're probably going to get that over the million people that apply on Indeed. Like it's just a very different perspective. So I love that you shared that. Is there anything else, like for somebody that is maybe trying to find a new job and they're kind of going down this reach out on LinkedIn thing to try to find new leads for jobs? Do you have any like tips or tricks that you like for that type of person?
Yeah, this is a great question. And even though I didn't have a ton of time in corporate, I feel like through all my internship getting experience and
Hmm.
reaching out, like I got really good at this. I think where a lot of people fall flat in their face is they try to be like this robotic, like super corporate type person. People
Yeah.
are people. Like if you see that someone loves Harry Potter or they love Disney somehow on their LinkedIn or on their social media, whatever, however you find out info about this person, I'm not going to judge your your stalking tactics, but you find out some piece of information about this person and riff with them on that. Like talk to them about Harry Potter, talk to them about Disney, talk to them about their favorite NHL team. Like if you lead human first, they're going to be more likely to talk to you about the business stuff later on. Don't be like some robot and talk about your Excel skills the first sentence that comes out of your mouth. I think a lot of people try to be this like robotic corporate person, whereas like all relationships are built by people talking to people. You're not going to get anywhere if you're just like this robot. So I think leading with that, just like genuine curiosity, being a real person, like be the type of person you would want to talk to, and
Hmm.
then people are going to want to connect with you, and then eventually those will lead to job opportunities.
I agree. I think this is so good. And I hope that everybody does get a copy of the book because it is very practical. I did appreciate the case studies and the stories from other people throughout the book too. I thought that was really interesting. And I'm really grateful that you just put all of your knowledge and wisdom and just tips and tricks into one easy to digest book that also has the numbers to back it up. I think that was like really cool to see. Is there anything we didn't touch on, Cody, that you think is like worth mentioning or could really help our listeners?
Um, let's see. We covered expenses pretty well.
Yeah.
I'm kind of going through my book sections. I try to
Yeah, yeah,
lay it
yeah.
out in like the easiest way possible. It's like the
Yep.
basics, then expenses, then income. We talked about investing a bit. And honestly,
Yeah.
like I said before, I want people to focus on the gap, not exactly what investments they need. I don't think that you have to be the biggest investment whiz to make this thing happen. You just need to have a big gap. And then the last one's life and retirement. And I think we did talk about that a little bit, but one thing I will say I think a lot of people think that once they hit financial independence, once that number shows up on the spreadsheet, that life is just going to be so different. But if you're not building the life that you want now in tiny increments, you're not going to have that life the second that spreadsheet shows up on the screen or the second that number shows up on the spreadsheet. So if you're like, okay, right when I hit five, I'm going to have a six pack and I'm going to be good at guitar and I'm going to be fluent in Spanish. Like if you're not spending your time doing those things in smaller time increments while you're working your corporate job on your journey to FI, then it's pretty unlikely that you're just going to randomly start doing that stuff once you hit FI. But it's very likely if you're already working out a bit with some of your free time, you're already spending some of your time learning guitar, you're already spending some time learning Spanish, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes a day, it's a lot easier to turn those dials up once you have more time freedom, once you hit FI, than it is to just start from scratch. So I think a lot of people have this weird notion about what their life is going to look like when they hit FI. And I've heard a lot of people they hit FI and then they feel lonely and they feel like they're lacking purpose. It's because they didn't retire to something. They
Mm.
didn't build the ship. They just jumped off. Like they have nothing to go on. So I think a lot of people should try to think about living their life, kind of what I was saying before, in more alignment with their values. Make that list of the top 10 things you value. Take a look at your calendar, your bank account, your credit card statements. Are those things in alignment with the things you say that you care about? And if they're not, make some tweaks. And then eventually you'll start to work closer and closer and closer to your perfect day. And then FI will be awesome.
I love it. What a beautiful way to wrap up for anybody trying to get their hands on the book. Amazon, of course, but you could also go to retireby30.com.
Retired by 30
Retireby30book.
book.
Com retireby30book.com, and from there there's also some cool resources and giveaways and all kinds of fun things that you're doing in celebration of the launch. Cody, this has been, I mean, it's been fun. It's nice to catch up with you too and just see what you're up to and all of your hard work and just be able to support you there too. Are you down for some rapid fires before we officially call it quits?
Oh, I am more than ready, Whitney. This has been fun.
Awesome. Okay, let's start with an easy-ish one. Where is one location you're dying to travel to?
Japan.
You haven't been to Japan yet.
I have not. I know you've been there. Don't rub it in my face.
Oh my, just twice, Cody? No, for real, you need to go. You would love it so much.
It's on my list. It's very high on my list. So I'm sure if we have this podcast in 5 years from now, hopefully that's not on the list anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're gonna follow up, and if it is, I'm gonna be like disappointed. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Okay, my next question for you. Aside from your own book, what is one book you find yourself gifting or recommending to others most often?
The 4 Hour Work Week, bar none. I've definitely recommended, talked about, gifted that book the most. It changed my life.
Oh, I love that. Okay, what's one purchase that you recently made that has made your life better?
Automatic cat feeder.
Tell me more.
Well, our cat would wake us up at 4:45, 5 a.m., basically whenever he was hungry, whatever he wanted to. Super annoying in the morning, super annoying at night. So now we have his dry food pops out at 5 a.m. every single day, dry food at 6 p.m., and then he gets his wet food for lunch. Spoiled, is
Amazing.
it? He's a spoiled guy.
Is there like a specific one that you like?
Um, I don't know the exact model, but
Yeah.
I could find it for you if you want to stick it in the show notes for those
Yeah.
for any cat lovers.
There are quite a few cat lovers that listen in, but that is a good tip. Okay, my last question for you. In your opinion, what is the secret to financial success?
Maximizing the gap. I know it sounds like a broken record at this point, but that is seriously it. People love to get super fancy with tax strategies and what investments accounts and this ETF versus this mutual fund, but it's like have a big gap between your income and your expenses, invest it, and financial freedom will come faster than you can imagine.
I love it. Cody, thank you again for coming back on the show. It was so good to catch up with you and to read your book. I'm really proud of the work you've done here. And I think a lot of people are going to have their lives changed if they actually apply everything in the book. It's so good and it's so spot on. So congrats again.
Appreciate it. Even if someone implements one piece of anything we talked about today, like you are going to be in a far better position than you were before. Don't think you have to do it all. But thank you,
Of
Whitney. I really do appreciate that.
course. All right. I will stop the recording here.